Good morning.
Hi, Dr.
Good
Lansing.
morning.
Hello to everyone who's joining us. Just so you know, the recording is on and we will get started in a minute or two. Okay, good morning, everyone. I can go ahead and get started now that it is 10 a.m. I am Angela Coob. I am the Resilience Program Coordinator with the Maryland Department of Emergency Management. And this is the Maryland Food System Resiliency Council call. Just so you know, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the council's website at a later date in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. And we can go ahead and take a look at the agenda. Okay, so we are going to open the meeting up as usual with some general announcements. We will take a look at the meeting minutes, or rather just do a vote on the adoption of the meeting minutes from June. So hopefully all of the council members received those. We have an exciting workshop planned for today with Monica Kindle from the Maryland Department of Emergency Management. She is the Chief Equal Employment Opportunity Practices Officer. From there, we are going to talk about the council bylaws and have some updates from members. So we'll do a roll call now of the council members, but if you are not an appointed member of the council, we request that you please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. We would love to know who's here. You can put your name and your affiliation. Oh, before I do roll call, I will turn it over to Secretary Strickland and Dr. Stephanie Lansing, our co-chairs, to give a welcome.
Well, thank you, Annika, and thank everybody for taking the time to be here today. I can only say hi, and then I got to jump because I've got two other meetings I've got to get to. But I really want to extend a special thanks to everybody on the council and the work you've done. Really, what I would kind of call this past year, and the rhythm we're getting into. We finished the report, and that's ready to go to the General Assembly. So your time and your effort is greatly appreciated. I've had the opportunity through the summer to visit a few places that are all food related and seen some unique things happening with all of that. And I can't tell you how impressed I am and inspired I am by all of you and your efforts in this particular area. So with that, I just want to thank you and say hi, and I'll listen for a little bit and I'll hand it over to Dr. Lansing.
All right, thank you so much. And I'll just echo Secretary Strickland's that I'm just really proud of the group of what we've done so far with the report, but I'm really looking forward to this next year. We know it's really rough times right now for a lot of people. And I just know that we have a lot of creativity in this room. We have a lot of passion. And so I'm just looking forward to, continuing the work that we're doing. And I really appreciate everybody's effort, not only to be here, but to just bring your ideas and your passion to, helping to solve the problems in the, in the food system and helping to support those that need our help the most. So thank you.
Great. Thank you both. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a roll call quickly. I saw Jesse Albright here, Daphne Ultima Johnson, Heather.
I realize my mic is off. I don't know if you heard me. I'm here.
Hey, Daphne.
Hey.
Heather Bruskin. Beth Brewster. Here. Michelle Burton. Michelle Caruso.
Good morning.
Good morning. Delegate Charcudian. Lindsay Doyle.
Here.
Hi, Lindsay. Anne Marie Hart Bookbinder.
Here.
Dr. Escobar. Senator Hester. Nick Hargrove. LaBelle Hillgrove.
Great day, present.
Hi, LaBelle. LaMonica Jones.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here.
Morning. Dr. Karki said he was not available. Do we have Lisa Lackenmeyer?
Here.
Taylor LaFave?
Here.
Saw Dr. Stephanie Lansing already. Grace Leatherman, I saw.
Here.
Hi, Joe Liu. Steve McHenry.
Good morning.
Good morning. Joe Malone.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Nancy Nunn.
Good morning.
We have Martin Crew here.
Here, good morning.
Mary Salins is here. Carl Schlegel is here. Teresa Stahl. Diana Taylor.
I'm here, Annika. I'm sorry. Teresa is here.
Okay.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Teresa and Diana. Ann Wallerstedt.
Here.
Hi, Shannon McDonald.
Present.
And Leslie Sessom Parks.
Here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for bearing with me for that. We're just going to welcome several new members. I am excited to share that the council is complete now. We don't have any vacancies, and we have several new members who have joined since the last meeting. So we'll go ahead and do a quick introduction for all of them. And when we get to you, if you want to say hello, please feel free to do so. So welcome, LaBelle Hillgrove. LaBelle is here with the Maryland Department of Human Services and will be one of the council's co-vice chairs. LaBelle, do you want to say hello?
Oh, yes. Great morning. Thank you so much. Nice picture.
Thank you. Michelle Burton, were you here? Michelle Burton is with the Prince George's Food Equity Council.
Hi, good morning. Yep.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
We're glad to have you here. Lindsay Doyle, she is our new expert on food system impacts on climate and the environment.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to be working with you all on this council.
Thanks, Lindsay. Mary Salins, she is the owner of Teddy Bear Fresh Produce.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us, Mary. Ann Wallerstedt, she is the Vice President of Government Relations and Strategic Initiatives with the Maryland Food Bank.
Hi, I've been around for a little bit, but excited to step into Meg's big shoes on the council.
Yeah, we are excited to have you. Welcome. And Martin Prue, he is the FSRC co-vice chair as the Department of Agriculture, officially the value-added agricultural specialist. We all know Martin, but Martin, do you want to say hi?
Sure, yes, not so much an unfamiliar face, but filling in this formal capacity and grateful to be here.
Thanks, Martin. And I did want to wish a happy retirement to Mark Powell. He has been on the council since 2021, and we will miss working with him. Okay. For the next upcoming meeting, we have a December 11th meeting, which will be a continuation of the conversations today. I did also want to share that the annual report has been submitted to the governor's office and is still under review. So publication coming soon, hopefully. But in the meantime, we are starting to work on scheduling some outreach sessions for the council. And there are some exciting opportunities for the council to share your recommendations coming soon. So I will send an email update about those later on once we have more information to share. But without further delay, let's have the meeting minute vote, and we can get started with the content of our meeting. But Dr. Lansing, do you want to help us out with this one?
Yeah, so again, the meeting minutes are available on the FSRC website. And so do we have anyone that wants to formally move that we adopt the June meeting minutes?
I'll formally motion that we adopt the June meeting minutes. It's Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. And we need a second?
And I second.
Wonderful. Thank you, Diana. So all those in favor, please either formally raise your hands or you can raise your hands using the within the system here. Thumbs up work. Thank you. And then go ahead and lower those. And anyone that's opposed can do that. All right, seeing none, we will formally adopt the June meeting minutes. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Lansing. Okay, so now for our primary topic today. It's been a longstanding request and something that I've heard many times since I started working with the council, that you would like to have a more explicit conversation about how equity plays a role in food systems and in your work. So we're excited to really get that ball rolling today and revisit that conversation. The council last had a workshop in racial equity and implicit bias in 2023, and many of you were there, but we also have so many new members, so this might be new content to some people. But this is going to take a different approach from your last workshop. The council's legislative mandate through the statute is really based in many equity principles, and both implicitly and explicitly. And something that we heard multiple times through the recommendations process this past year was that it was hard to concretely and explicitly integrate equity within the wording of your recommendations. And so we really took that into consideration when thinking about this meeting and how we wanted to organize it. And I think it is perfect timing to get into these topics as you will be revisiting your bylaws later in this meeting and this fall, and thinking about any updates you want to see happen there. So some of the things that we have observed in the statute that are really grounded in equity and equal opportunity are availability and accessibility to healthy food, health and wellness, public health disparities, economic opportunity and growth, community, and personal agency. So I really wanted to remind you all that this is integral to your work and applaud you all for already doing so much in this space. But I will turn it over to Monica Kendall, who will guide us through the next hour of our meeting. We're excited to have her.
Thank you so very much. If you could stop sharing your screen so that way I can share mine and be able to control the slides here. But good morning. It's nice to see, well, one face that I can see and recall from the last time I joined you all. And then the rest of you, I'm unable to see your beautiful faces. But I look forward to the time that we have together this morning. So I hope that you all also have your cell phones handy or at least the opportunity to use a web browser, because the session will also be interactive. So we're going to be discussing racial equity, dialogue, and equity in Maryland's food system. I'm going to go over some of our goals that we have for today. We have a short time today, so I tried to create some learning objectives that can make all of our time here valuable, and then help you set you up for success for a future workshop that you all will have in just a couple of short months. My name is Monica Kendall. I'm the Chief Equal Employment Opportunity and Fair Practices Officer at MDEM. My office is the Office of Civil Rights and Fair Practices. We are still continuing the heart of the work of diversity, equity, inclusion, and racial justice. So I am, still available for folks who are interested in this work and supporting this work. And so just a huge thank you to each of you that are doing this work, especially with, in the climate that we're in, that could make doing this work challenging. So thank you very much, just from the bottom of my heart, both personally and professionally. My background is primarily in human resources. It's a mix of different things. So I think that situates me nicely for this work. But my background is in adult learning theory and organizational development, as well as human resources in fair practices. I've worked a large part of my career supporting families in social service areas. I most recently, prior to joining MDEM, served as the inaugural Equity and Inclusion Advisor for Maryland judiciary system, supporting all three levels of our judiciary. And then prior to that, worked with Johns Hopkins Medicine, supporting patient engagement and developing learning curriculum for physicians and medical teams to help strengthen patient outcomes. In addition to that, I really enjoy, the work that I do here at MDEM. Yeah, let's go ahead and move forward. So the objectives, that I kind of come up with for you all when thinking about what's the best way for me to support the council in your work. So the purpose really of today's session is really to help lay the groundwork for your ongoing work to promote equity in Maryland's food system. As the council, your mandate centers on really ensuring that every Marylander has access to healthy, culturally appropriate food, while also strengthening economic opportunity for food and farm businesses and addressing disparities that we all know that have persisted for generations. So to help us kind of achieve that vision, it really requires us to look closely at how racism and inequity shows up at different levels. I really encourage us all to start thinking about how racism and inequity shows up in our individual interactions within organizations and policies, and then across the system that really shape food access, health outcomes, and economic opportunity. We really need to be thinking broadly and more broadly. This very first session that we're doing today is really designed to help us really build a shared understanding of the different levels of racism and to create some ground rules for how we're going to engage in this important work together. By the end of our time today, given I think an hour, we might have some room for some, to go beyond that slightly. But by the end of the day, my hope is that you all will walk away with a list of shared agreements that will be used to guide your conversations as you move forward. And then because you will have another workshop co-facilitated by myself and a subject matter expert in food system and racial equity, I want you all to really think about what are 3 clear goals and outcomes. What do you want from that session? So when we bring that training to you and we bring that subject matter expert to you, we could share with that SME what it is that you all are looking for. So that way, you make good use of the time. I mean, honestly, this is a broad, racial justice is a very broad topic. I think one of the reasons, one of the considerations is always how could we apply these principles to the work that we're doing. And so I think just having really clear goals can help you all set good expectations and actually get something out of the training, especially because, time has lapsed since you all had the initial training. There's the new members that may not have had some training. And then just, is this something that you're only getting a couple of times? How are you incorporating the training and awareness into your work, even as we move forward? So as we continue today, I want you to really think about there's the 3 levels of racism, right? There is that 4th area that I put that we've got in there, interpersonal, because I also want you to think of this, from an individual, institutional, structural aspect towards the right. When we start thinking about how racism shows up institutionally and structurally, that's where we're talking about some of the systemic impacts. But the individual, aspect of that also contributes then to how we interact with others. And then therefore systemically, because we're individuals doing this work, and we bring ourselves and our experiences to the work that we're doing, which could correlate to, the work that we're putting out and how it impacts people. So at the very individual level, what we're talking about is our personal beliefs, our own experiences, our prejudices, and our actions. This could be some of what we do consciously and unconsciously. It could be externalized or internalized. Everyone, don't feel weird because everyone, we all have a unique individual experience. And while we may not talk about it broadly, there are some things that we might even question about how we think about things or even struggle with even just having a conversation around racism. So I want you to think about yourself as a person and how race has played out in your individual experiences and conversations that you have, whether those are in safer spaces like at your dinner table or in your workplace. And know that all of those experiences combined are within you, and they come out in your interactions with people and in the work that you do. If we connect the individual level to the food system, we could think of it as some of hiring decisions, that could be made by a market manager. Right, where those decisions might include some bias, but that individual person is making those decisions. If we think about racism on an institutional level, we're then talking about policies and practices within organizations. So, our policies, but then our everyday practices, how we approach situations, the type of decisions that we make. This is where my work in fair practices comes in play, because my work is oftentimes centered around an employment law or, a workplace policy. But then we also forget fair practices is actually about how we make day-to-day decisions and how we approach things where there might not be a policy that guides that work, or there might not be an employment law that guides that work, but there is something called ethics and then just being a good human. So that's what we're talking about there. If we connect that to the food system, you could kind of think of it maybe as, is there an agency or county that has a funding program that unintentionally excludes Black, Indigenous, or people of color who are farmers. when we think about structural racism, we're really thinking about the cumulative and compounding effects of multiple institutions over time. And we have to think, historically. So if we incorporate that into, trying to connect it to the food system, there we're thinking about things like historical land theft, generational wealth disparities that impact farm ownership today. I did some quick research because food system isn't my one specialty, right? But I did want to best understand what the demographics of farmers were in Maryland. Some of what I learned, and I'll have to, if there's someone else that has a more updated stat, but I think it came from 2023, was that there were like 2% or less than 2% of farmers in Maryland being Black, although Maryland has a population of over 30% people being Black. So that was insightful to me, and I think it helped me think about historically and structural implications for why that might be. All right, y'all done hearing me talk? Are y'all ready to talk back to me? Yeah, all right, good. So I've got, this is where you all can either come off of mute or you can put in the chat. But there's a scenario that I have, and I really just want us, this is where, I want us to think about, all the different levels of racism that I mentioned through this scenario, but also just think broadly. I just want you just to imagine right now and share. So here's the scenario. So there's a goal to expand farmers market access. So a county in Maryland received a state grant to expand farmer markets into healthy food priority areas. The goal is to improve access to fresh produce and support local farmers. After 6 months, the new markets are underperforming and many residents in the targeted communities aren't attending. So based on just this text that I just gave you, what challenges do you imagine could be happening here? No right or wrong answers. All right. LaBelle, is it LaBelle?
It is, and that's exactly the chat just popped up with the answer that I was going to say.
All right, what does the chat say? Affordability, transportation, benefit access at the market, culturally relevant foods available. What LaMonica said, it's at an inconvenient time or location. It does not have products residents want or can afford. They're not aware it exists. Paperwork burden and mistrust of government. Market hours don't work for the community. How about that? Didn't engage with them to learn their needs. All right, what else could be happening? If it was my mom is gone now, but she struggled with paranoid schizophrenia. She might have said, I ain't going to that market. Them people might be trying to kill me.
No,
and I say that just as she might have said it, because that was my mother.
not being culturally sensitive.
Not being culturally sensitive. What to do with market foods once they get home. Anything else?
Not child friendly or not child safe.
Not child friendly or child safe. Yeah. All right. Thank you all for sharing. What else do we got there? Prices, no less expensive options, levels of product offerings. All right. Thank you all for participating in that scenario. I think all of the things that you all mentioned are beautiful. I did a little bit of imagining, and so I thought, what else could be happening? I thought about, what I shared about less than, 2% of farmers in Maryland being Black. So that could mean that most of the vendors that are showing up there could be, I shouldn't also just say wealthier, but they could be from more white farmers. They could also be from wealthier neighboring counties. People usually go to the market. I think about one of my best friends. I moved here from the Midwest, And I think about how important the market has been in my own life. And one of my closest friends today used to work at that market. So a lot of times, I think about a lot of the relational aspects that people have, to food and community. I thought about, what does the signage at the market look like? And did the, outreach materials, were they responsive to the community in terms of, did people even understand the information that was being provided about the market? And so also something that I wanted to mention and that I imagine, said, man, Maryland has a growing West African immigrant population. It's also, like the fourth state that has the largest West African community. I thought about even if we were, talking about the Black in terms of racial justice, and we were talking about the, Black experience. We have to also remember that not all Black people share the same experience. And I think that there was also an opportunity for me to imagine that, oftentimes, instead of not just thinking about race, but also thinking about language, culture, immigration status, and then not all Black communities face the same barriers or have the same experience here in the US. So, while, for example, West Africans and African Americans are both Black, their histories and experiences within the US food system might also differ. For example, African Americans have faced, generational impacts of slavery. We have Jim Crow laws, systemic land loss. West African immigrants face language barriers, hurdles regarding immigration, cultural misunderstandings, and they might not share the same generational history of U.S. specific policies like redlining or USDA discrimination. So again, I'm kind of just trying to point out that the scenario wasn't just about race in a broad sense, but it was also about ethnicity, language, and cultural inclusion. And so, thinking about that, also imagine, hey, prices like you all mentioned in the chat, prices might be higher than discounted grocery stores. You might have where the vendors don't all, consistently accept SNAP. Someone, using their SNAP card just because they see the machine, don't know that SNAP isn't accepted, having that card declined, feeling embarrassed. Some people don't even want to ask. Because some of the stigma that could be associated with receiving SNAP benefits. So a lot, and that's what I love about my work and how I approach racial justice, because a lot of it is also relational. And when we are working on policies, we forget that there is a part in the practice that is relational. And we don't do a lot of training or fostering that development. So some residents might have even reported, hey, I don't even feel comfortable going there. They, just saying, hey, people looking, but they're not buying nothing. And I referenced my mother's mental health struggles with paranoid schizophrenia because I couldn't come up with a better scenario really than using that example. And that's a very real thing. My mother probably would have said, I am not going to buy whatever from there because of people trying to kill me. I don't say that to be facetious. That was a very real thing that she could have said, because we also have to think about people with different types of disabilities that might be needing to access this market. And in her case, she was a person with a severe mental health disability, which impacted her in a way where she had a distorted reality of everyday life. So her reality was not the same of the world as other people. And so I wanted to share that. Additionally, the county making the decision to kind of, disinvest or to cut funding because of, they might have just seen it as a lack of community interest, but missed all of the points that you all put in the chat and that I just shared here. Does anybody have anything else that they want to share with that, or any other thoughts that are coming up? All right. All right, so I want to also move into this group. I see you all aren't shy because you took to the chat. But in these conversations and in doing this work, people will have their own experiences that they may be thinking and want to share, but don't know if they should share, or, you know, if they're comfortable sharing. They might feel it's better for them to stay quiet and let other people share. And it's usually about how safe people feel. For example, I talk about my mom and her mental health condition quite regularly now, but it's taken a lot of time to even share my mother's experiences in real ways, even when, you know, at times in my career where I've worked with people that struggled with mental health issues. And though my experience with my mom has a lot of influence about, you know, how I carry out my work. So as you all are fulfilling your mandate on this council and approaching your work, I'm sure you'll have moments like that. I'm sure you'll have moments like, man, I really want to say this thing, but are the other people going to get it? Are they going to judge me? Does that sound silly? Is that going to make me sound like I'm prejudiced, or, you know, am not understanding? Is it okay for me to, I don't really agree with the other person said, is it okay for me to challenge what they said? There's so many different things that are going to come up. Also, so many different emotions might even arise for you. And so it's just really important to set some really ground rules as a group for how you're going to approach this work. That way, once we get to that next session in December, we could go into that conversation with some having done some work around, you know, our core values about how we're going to, you know, have those conversations to then be able to implement, you know, what we're discussing into our work. But this might sound like a small thing, but I promise you it's really huge. I would challenge you to just think, and you don't have to provide a response, but think about in places where you feel absolutely safe. It might be with your best friend or at home, the conversations that you might have about racial justice, and then either comparing how you feel in that space to how you feel here on the council, having those conversations, or how you feel in your primary job about having those conversations, and think about the people that you are having those conversations with in those spaces. And do you feel safe, or do you feel vulnerable, or do you feel scared, or do you feel like, should I say this or not? And that's why we have this conversation. I am about brave spaces. You know, brave space, safe space, that's the word that we call it. But, you know, whatever. Brave is kind of more just, you know, about stepping out and speaking up. Safe. I don't know. I don't want to. No, I do want to. I don't necessarily, I'm not a firm believer that there are any real safe spaces. But I do believe that there are brave spaces. So once you do this work, you know, I hope that you'll have a higher sense of comfortability as you do your work on this council and in your, you know, primary jobs, because you want to be in a space where you feel comfortable. And because of that, you can also learn. So you learn from other people, you learn, you know, about the work. It helps kind of break some of the groupthink, which then goes into the recommendations that you all make that are going to impact real people. So with that, it is time to get your phones out. because we are going to do an activity, and I'm going to be switching the screen here in just a second. We're going to go ahead together as a group and create what our ground rules are going to be. So these are agreements that we're going to make together that are going to help us to make sure that conversations are respectful, that they're brave, and that they're productive. Because you will be talking about race, you'll be talking about equity, you'll be talking about systemic barriers. It's very easy to talk about those things on real surface level, but you have to put yourself actually in uncomfortable conversations to actually grow and to do something more impactful. So it's really important for us to have a shared understanding of what these ground rules are going to be as we move forward. So get your phones out. If you haven't heard about Mentimeter, it's a good way to engage each other and groups of people. So I encourage you, you could create a free Mentimeter. And I encourage you, even though we're doing it here, you know, to use it in your work. So if you can, get your phone out and scan this QR code on the screen, or you can go to www.menti.com in your browser and enter the code that you see here, 41688697. I am going to share another screen. Oh, go ahead.
And participation is anonymous, right, Monica?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Participation is anonymous. Your name is not going to be associated with anything you put in here. I can't see it. Your other people on the call can't see it. So with that, my ground rule is also to be respectful, professional. But if you don't put your name, nobody knows who you are. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to share a new screen so we can see the live responses. Hey, I see another person's face. Hi, Martin. Okay. Got 3 responses. 4, be respectful of each other. I really don't have any particular thoughts in this regard. That's all right. Open to listen and learn. Oh, something's in the way here. Let me see if I can move it. No judgment, respectful, open to new ideas, open to self-reflection. What's discussed here stays here. Don't feel like you know everything. That's right. Listen closely, participate fully. I love that. Enter meetings in learn mode. Listen respectfully, allow space for quieter voices to participate. I love that. Willing to address economic pressures. Open to learn humility. Yeah. How to address and stand firm in the context of recent federal attacks on equity, work, and social services. Absolutely. Consideration of different opinions with appreciation from different perspectives. All right. Okay, we've got 19 of like 34 people that are signed in, so we'll give it some more time. Consider reality of language change to secure funding. That is true. That's real. Non-judgmental. Don't take yourself seriously or act like you're an expert, because we're all learning and doing our best. Hey, don't take yourself seriously. That's right. Agreement. Don't take anything personally. Okay. Still got some more folks. Got 21 responses. Appreciate different perspectives. And try to get us a few more responses in here. You can enter more than one also, because next we'll vote. And the goal is, I'm hoping that you guys can walk away with at least 3. Okay, where we at? Will the conversation next time be recorded and open to the public? Full participation may be less likely if so. I'm ready to talk now. Hey, have grace for one another and some positive intent. Yes. Consider your own bias, not just of others. Yes. We quick talk about other people, right? We'll talk about ourselves. Don't act like you didn't put your foot in your mouth when these are all recorded for public consumption on what you did. That is true. I swear I don't say nothing that I wouldn't say to nobody. Speak curiously, and not assumption. All right. Got it. Okie doke. So I will, what did we say? Be in a learning space. Absolutely. So there is in, I don't want to get it mixed up, but in learning, you will teach, and in teaching, you will learn. So it's a good thing to be in a consistent, constant learning, a forever learner. Show curiosity, speak with curiosity, not assumption. All right. Okay, so I will stop there, and then let's see, we got 27 to 35. Okay. All right, I think that's good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and allow you all to vote. So you get up to 3 votes. Vote on some of the thoughts that were placed in there, and then whatever the top 3 are, those are what I would suggest as your group norms. All right, we got 10 people who voted. We had 27 responses in there. I didn't participate, but there is one thing that I want to share because of one of the comments in there, and it's a very real thing, and I want to just share. It reminds me of the ground rule about don't take someone's silence or they're not, participating in conversation and then pass judgment on why they may be participating or why they may not be participating in the conversation. So that's one thing I didn't include in there, but I did want to talk about just briefly while people are continuing to vote, because it is a very real thing. I operate with a very high comfortability, and also I put a lot of thought into what I'm going to say before I say it. But this work is very real to me, but I also understand why people are apprehensive to joining conversations, and then also some of the things that could limit conversations from being potentially what they could be. So that's a very real thing. So it just brought me to thinking about and sharing with you all, never pass judgment as to why someone might participate in the conversation and why they may not. All right, got at least 26. I'll give it another minute to see if anybody else wants to join. My response is not loading to be shared. Ay, 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 ay. In the main section, Teresa, I'm scared that if I go back, I wonder, voting. Oh yeah, but okay. So voting results are not shared yet. I'm getting ready to share. I was just given another minute for people to vote who they had not. Yep. All righty. Okay. So now I will share the results. All right. So we've got respect different perspectives, speak from your own experience, assume good intent. All right. Allow space for quieter voices to participate, be respectful of each other, open to listen and learn, be open to different perspectives that may challenge your own. All right. Okay. All right. This is also just a great one. I cannot pass it up because it's also a real thing. So the one, don't act like you didn't put your foot in your mouth when these are all recorded. I do want you all, one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever been given from a leader who's now my friend. She was my supervisor at some point in my career. And she said, never write anything or say anything that you wouldn't want to be on the front page of a newspaper, right? We're all human, but that is a good comment. I don't want to, pass up the opportunity. We do exist in the real world. All right. So it looks like your top three or the top one: respect different perspectives, speak from your own experience, assume good intent, allow space for quieter voices to participate, be respectful of each other, open to listen and learn. Sounds like those are your top 4 ground rules. So I will record those and we'll email them out to you all so that way you have them. Once you set them, you have to do something with them. It's like we all know that in relationships and at work, communication is important, right? We all know that. We always say communication, is the most important thing. It's the thing to make the dream work, all the good stuff about it. But how often do we learn a new communication skill and then we try it? So we have to do the work to realize, these group norms to make them become a part of our culture. So, in your own time, after you have these discussions, I encourage you to reflect on how you incorporated these rules in either, how you participated, how maybe you didn't participate, or what you observed. So don't just let me type them up, send them to you, and then put them on a shelf somewhere. You actually have to do some work around them to actually make them become alive. All right, so moving on to the next thing. I want you all to walk away with at least 3 goals that you should set for your next session to make it, what in the next session, because I was only able to do a little bit for you today. And ultimately my goal, get you all, excited, share some good information with you, have you all walk away with where you want to go next. So using the same code in the same QR code, go ahead and put, what goals you should set for your next session to make it meaningful and impactful as possible. And we'll vote on those also. And then, Annika, we will have, how long will that next session be? Do you know? I don't think we know quite yet.
The meetings are always 2 hours.
Always 2 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it'll be part of that meeting.
All right. So if you heard of SMART goals, make sure they SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, and realistic. No icebreakers. Whoever put that, is that meaning do you want to have icebreakers or you don't want to have any icebreakers? I'm going to take it as maybe I can see why you don't want to have icebreakers because you want to focus on specifically having some things that you can achieve and implement in your work. To be willing to discuss the history so we can move forward past the history. Yes. Address economic realities in food space. Determine how we would incorporate this in our work on the council. Yes. Got 4 responses. Y'all ain't done fell asleep on me, huh, y'all? All right, better understand how the government changes to food programs are affecting people. Walk away with actionable strategies for incorporating equity in recommendations development. Make transcript available. Access the impact of this environment on our work. How do we move forward with awareness while continue to have an effect? What are the issues? How do we address them? What have other groups done that have proven successful? When possible, share items to be discussed in advance so those who need more time to process can do it prior to the discussion. I love that. It's important. Address current issues and determine how to move forward. Understand what others' fears and concerns are and the challenges and issues that they are encountering. Tie the findings to what actions we take through implementation. How do we measure that change over time? And what topics we center in the council? How equity plays a part in food insecurity. Hone in on key objectives of the group. Education and long-term and learning for long-term change. All right, we'll give it a few more minutes. Learn about methods that have worked in other areas of the state, share success and challenges and solutions, create subcommittees. $15, am I losing y'all? I'm gonna give it a couple more minutes. Then we'll vote. All right, I thought I had one more vote. All right, last call. Okay. All right, now we're gonna just go ahead and move into the vote. Here you go. No votes. I ain't got no votes yet. Can somebody let me know y'all still out there in the universe? Okay, got it. Good. We still there.
We're here just reading through everything.
No, that's okay.
You have to read all the list.
That is true. Okay, we've got 15 votes, and I think 15 people have provided. Okay, we've got some more coming in, so I'll give it some more time. You do have to read through them, so give it a few more minutes. All right, that sounds about right. Let's see the results. All right, so I think the same thing here. We'll take the top 4, walk away with actionable strategies for incorporating equity and recommendations development, determine how we will incorporate this in our work on the council, better understand how the government changes to food programs are affecting people, address current issues and determine how to move forward, understanding what others' fear and concerns are, and the challenges and issues that they are encountering. All right. Well, thank you all for your participation in that discussion in the workshop. What I'll do now is I'll make sure that I share the results of the Mentimeter with Summer, who will distribute them. I hope that you'll remember what I said about the ground rules. That will be important. And then we will share the top goals that you all just came up with, those top 4, between myself and our co-facilitator for the next session. So that way, as we design that session, we could focus on developing learning objectives that will help you all meet your top 4 goals. Well, we'll do the top 3, but 1 was a tie, so we'll probably could include 4. But the learning objectives should really be centered around those 4 themes to make sure that you all get what you're looking to get out of the next session. So outside of that, thank you again. I'll put my contact information in the chat. My email address is there if you ever want to reach out, but I really do appreciate you all and hope that you enjoyed the workshop today with the time that we had available to us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Monica. I really thought that was a helpful exercise and helpful to have the Mentimeter as a tool for voicing opinions anonymously in light of the Open Meetings Act requirements. So I really appreciate that thoughtful format. Thank you.
For sure, and I hope that you all will consider using it in some of your work, both on the council and outside. It's actually a pretty cool tool.
And thank you so much, Monica, for your expertise. I look forward to the next session in December. And I will follow up, as Monica said, with the additional information for you all in the meantime. So next on our agenda, we are going to talk about the council bylaws. Do people want a few minutes break, or do you want to keep going? Are we ready to keep going? Thumbs up if you want to keep going.
Yeah, let's just go.
Let's go.
Keep going.
Great.
Do it.
Okay. So let me share this again. Okay. Ooh, I have to skip through these slides. Here you go. Council member bylaws. So for those who are newer to the council, you may not be aware, but the council, though it has been around since 2021, only established bylaws last year. And it was quite the process for you all in terms of thinking thoughtfully about what requirements you wanted to set for yourselves as council members. You also created a definition for food system resilience that shared and helped guide your work. And each of the committees took the time to really identify actionable steps that they can take to address the different aspects of the council's mandate, which is in the legislation. As you may know, there was House Bill 9 that Delegate Charkoudian sponsored this past legislative session that made some changes to your mandate. This was voted on as a request by the council, and it's exciting that this has happened. So we're going to have to update these specific items in your bylaws, which echoes the statute. So food waste is now wasted food and is accompanied with a definition of wasted food. Food desert is now healthy food priority area. And again, there's a definition. So those are set. An additional change that was not previously discussed by the full council, but has taken effect, is that the strategic plan to increase production and procurement of Maryland certified food language has changed slightly. It's now been integrated under Goal 2, which was to develop equity and sustainability policy recommendations to increase the long-term resiliency of the food system. So it's under Goal 2, and it requires a recommendation for increasing aggregation, marketing, distribution, and institutional procurement of local food in urban and rural settings. So it doesn't say Maryland certified food anymore. Any questions about that? So this is going to also slightly change the structure of your reports in the future. There will be 3 goals, and this component of your mandate is now under Goal 2. We can follow up about any questions you have about those specific things later on. But really what I'm hoping that this conversation can help me with is to create a draft with additional updates that have been discussed over the past year with council members. So there were 3 key things that I want to talk about with you all, and I need your participation. The first is a suggestion for including procedures for how the council engages with external partners for recommendations development. So this was an exciting year in that you had adopted a new strategy for creating recommendations with these recommendations work groups. And for those who may not be aware, the recommendations come out of the two of three subcommittees, the Environment and Production Committee and the Distribution and Access Committee. Both do a lot of work to create the recommendations that go into each year's report for the Maryland General Assembly. And so the committees divided into work groups to create the recommendations that are included in the report. It was a lot of work, and it was really inspiring to watch. And one of the cool things about the way you manage those groups is you invited subject matter experts to come help inform those recommendations. But there were also some questions about who gets to participate? Are we really capturing all of the voices that should be here at the table? If it's just people who happen to be aware of this, are there things that you all should be doing to make sure that you are appropriately addressing the part of the council's statute that says you need to engage with Marylanders with lived experience? Looking for some thoughts on that. Would you like to see some procedural things go into your bylaws with this specific issue? Looking for active participation here, guys. Should I say more about what this is, what the question is? Do you understand what I'm asking? How are you wanting as a council to integrate members of the public into your recommendations development? Is there a thoughtful way that you want to include a process for that in your bylaws? Dr. Lansing.
Well, I'm thinking last year, one of the things that we did was we had that time for us to send it out to the state agencies to get their feedback. So I'm wondering if there's a way to formalize that. The only issue with that is you really want to get public input early in the process and not at the end of the process, right? So when we sent it to state agencies, it was already a fully developed recommendation. So I'm wondering if there's a way to have some sort of public engagement, maybe mid recommendation instead of the end, and thinking about how that might be done and, you know, what type of engagement it might be, because I feel like if it's adding the state agency part was, I think, important, and I appreciate that, but I also think having engagement earlier in the process with the communities to drive the way the recommendations are formed would be better in the case of community engagement versus state agency engagement.
Thanks, Dr. Lansing. Anyone else?
I think that's a good suggestion. The only problem is, as I go back over last year and being on so many different work groups, it took a long time to even get to the finalization. And what I thought was helpful is on many of the work groups, some of the state agencies were represented. So if they're continuously represented, they really had a voice within what we were bringing forth and wanted the policy to be, the recommendations to be. And then when it went to the state agency, they also had a voice on how we came about and what it was about. So they had more information. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if we continue to have them on the work groups,
Thanks, Diana. And I'm seeing some comments in the chat. We have one. It'll be hard to do this well without additional resources. I'm curious if the resources are staffing resources or what the thought is there. Putting you on the spot, Michelle.
No worries. I just feel like, so there's such variety of areas that we make recommendations about across the food system, and to engage folks with lived experience is a tricky process when those people are not compensated for their time in some way, or, you know, so if there's a way to do it. And, you know, I also think it was a lot of time and effort on MDEM staff last year, as well as, you know, the leadership and everyone who attends these meetings. So, you know, resources in terms of time also. But I think I agree that, you know, we should have a process for this, and it's something that we can always start and try to work incrementally towards making it better over time. So, you know, I agree with some of the thoughts about what a starting point might be. in terms of in the middle of the recommendation period. I'm just trying to do some more intentional feedback gathering from folks outside of the rooms that we're in.
Thanks, Michelle. That's really helpful. LaBelle?
Great day. Being one of the newbies in the room, is there actually a formalized engagement plan? No.
No. So you are coming in at a time when the council is just starting to formalize these processes. So this set of bylaws is the first like established governance that the council is following, aside from the statute that created the council, if that makes sense. So last year, or it was at the start of this year, the council voted to adopt a process of including state. I can't remember if there was a vote, but you decided to include a state agency review period to help guide the recommendations in terms of like feasibility and like alignment with what is possible and what is desired for the state agencies that are mentioned in the recommendations. And we have our legal counsel suggesting that we should keep bylaws as bare bones as possible with board policies governing actions by the board. Okay, we will definitely be following up about how to enact this appropriately. Okay, did that answer your question, LaBelle?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Because
Okay, so-
because without a plan, I think it's in my mind it's difficult, because when you hear state agency, considering I am a state agency, right? I'm like, okay, what is it? I start going into the weeds, right? So like, is there a formalized plan? Like, okay, have we identified what's negotiable, not what's not negotiable? Who are our target audience? So without a plan, it's kind of hard to develop a plan of what it is that we want, how to actually effectuate a plan that doesn't exist. So maybe we should back up to develop an actual plan, maybe.
Yeah, so, and I can say more about that. A big driver for that decision to have that formal review period is we know that there are several state agencies who have official seats on the council, and there are many who are even here on this call today who do not have those specific appointments on the council, but who have a lot to contribute to the conversation. And we got some behind the scenes questions about when is it appropriate for those state agencies to participate in the discussion? Do they get to contribute to the writing process before before it gets published? Do they get like at what point in the recommendations development should they be chiming in? And so that's why we really wanted to have that set time for state agencies to provide feedback on a draft of the recommendation, if that makes sense. However, we also encourage active conversation at the committee level through the development and decision-making process. Okay, let's look at the chat. We had people want to have the community involved in development process if it's feasible. Keep it in the capacity of current council. Could there be a public comment period, written or verbal testimony for the year rather than a consultation for each recommendation? We would need to develop ways to make community friendly and accessible to facilitate participation before engaging with them. Okay. I will also share a behind the scenes thing as the staff member who helped dive into this new approach for the first time this year. I got some inquiries from people who I observed actively participating in recommendations development who had never heard of the council before they started participating, or were at different levels of understanding of the mandate that you all work through. So any other thoughts on this? I'm hearing, yes, you want to have external partners and members of the public participate, but maybe not in the early phases of recommendations development. Is that right? So what's going to happen from here is I'm going to send out a draft of updates with bylaws or policies and procedures as an appendix item to the bylaws, depending on what our legal counsel suggests. pitching what I'm hearing in this meeting. So please let me know if I misunderstood anything. We can move on to the next question. All right, moving on. Ooh. Policies for council outreach on behalf of the council and stakeholder engagement. Oh, thank you, Teresa. The local food council meetings could provide opportunities to hear from more people with lived experiences. That's a good suggestion. Thank you, Teresa. Okay, so policies for council outreach on behalf of the council and stakeholder engagement. So something that we have heard from council members is a little bit of confusion or concern about when it's appropriate for council members to reach out to various organizations, state agencies, secretaries, legislators about your work on the council. And yeah, should there be a formal process for doing that? What do you want that to look like?
I think there should be a formal process, but I don't know what it should look like, but I do think it should be a formal process so everyone can know.
I agree.
What would it look like? Any other ideas? I heard Diana say she wasn't sure, which is fine. Shannon.
Oh, we lost you, Shannon.
No, I'm right here. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Unmute. Just wanted to clarify on this specific one. So for example, what kind of outreach are you referring to for stakeholder engagement in this specific context? As in, like, for example, I have seen a lot of really interesting policies being enacted in the state of Minnesota and also in Ohio. Is that what you mean as far as outreach on behalf of that to get them to engage? And what would the process be?
Yeah, so like example without naming specifics was MDEM staff was CC'd on an email to a state agency secretary from someone who said, open with, I'm representing the FSRC. And here are some things that I think are important issues for you to consider. That kind of thing is what first comes to mind. But I think we're looking for any additional thoughts on how the council members should coordinate that kind of outreach.
Yeah, I mean, I would think anytime that I would just think that, as a collective body, normally anytime that you're never really representing the collective body, right? You are, to me, these are the recommendations of the collective body, but there is no like single representative of the collective body. And so I think just having clear recommendations on that. I think, for example, once the report is released, what we do want is for people at local food councils to say things like, here's the report, we should read it, this is how you engage with the council. Like that should be, we want the outreach in that way, in the sense of letting people know about the work that we do and inviting people to join our subcommittees. So I think you don't want to hold people's hands back with that work, but you also need to have very clear guidelines about, we are a collective body and you can't be a representative of the collective. You can't use terms like that. So maybe just some guidelines that we use with onboarding on being clear about how, how the work is represented, because it is a collective. It is not an individual effort.
I agree with Stephanie, but I don't think anyone should, and you're not saying this, Stephanie, should say they represent something and not have brought it before the committee. That's absolutely wrong. So the way that we could rectify it is maybe there's a point of contact where they send a letter, say, I would like to contact this person. Could you bring this to the next meeting and see what the members say?
Thanks, Diana, and thank you, Dr. Lansing. Michelle, the example I gave was that MDEM was copied on an email from someone saying that they were representing the council to a state secretary. with a list of things that they wanted to see addressed. Okay, so Anne Marie said should go through a voting process or approval of a subcommittee or main leadership. So that could make sense. Like, would you like to have the voting process happen at the subcommittee level,
or
rather than like a full council vote?
Yeah, I think at the subcommittee or even the leadership council, the subcommittee, which is representative of the leaders of the subcommittee. I think that would be a good place. And something else just to, has come up even for me, writing a grant saying, can you give a letter of support, right? And so like is somebody just decide that, or does it get voted on to do things like that? Because I know we don't really have a policy for that. And so I think there's a lot of places where we could, say that it is either the subcommittee does it or the leadership council, or it's both. The subcommittee votes on whether they think this is something that we should approach somebody about, and then the leadership is at least informed. Or so yeah, I think having some sort of policy put in place, and I don't know if we add it to the specifically to our code, or if it's just part of our onboarding procedures. That would be the question.
I think it would probably be both. We would definitely have onboarding include new policies for members. Yeah, Nancy.
So to tag on what Dr. Lansing just said, the Hughes Center has a really diverse board, and we're also part of another collaborative with a very diverse membership. And it gets really tricky when you get into letters of support or conversations like that, because in essence, the person who is the recipient is assuming that every party has agreed to what's being said. So you may even have to get into or want to consider getting into voting on a broader base when you're submitting something in support of a letter of support or something else, because you never know who it's going to trip up on the membership, or they're going to get asked about it amongst their leadership.
Okay, so let's give an example to make sure I'm understanding the suggestions that have been made. Let's say that the Environment and Production Committee has an issue that they want to reach out to a state official on. The committee could vote to do that outreach, and then we could inform the other committee co-chairs and the council co-chairs about this decision at the committee level. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I almost see this a little bit as two issues. One almost seems like a code of conduct. Like you cannot, the example you gave, for example, that seems like a code of conduct of how we represent ourselves as council members. Or not, what we do and don't say as being on the council. So to me, that's almost a code of conduct. And then there's some of these procedural questions we're having about that we brought into this conversation about letters of support, or engagement at meetings. So for example, presenting at the rural council, right? So that is something that, we did as a leadership committee saying we would like to do this, but it didn't go to a formal vote. Can we present at this? Because we often don't have time for that, because the abstracts come quickly and things are due. So I think there could be almost a separate thing. One is a code of conduct of the members, and then one is when we are representing, whether it's a letter of support, whether it's a presentation, what is the procedure for getting the for getting approval to do that, whether it's a presentation or a letter.
I think that it makes a lot of sense, Dr. Lansing, and having both a code of conduct and a procedure for like a letter of support or that kind of outreach opportunity totally makes sense. Yeah, Anne Marie.
Yeah, I would just add, being that you are with the state agency, I'm sure that there are other,
departments, within the state of Maryland that have a protocol laid out for, when you are speaking for, that office, that we could probably just easily model something after following what Dr. Lansing was saying.
Yes, we can definitely work from existing sources to create that. Okay, last one. And this one is similar to the previous. So something that we heard a lot of confusion about was, when does the council want to provide testimony or testify with regard to specific legislation during the legislation session? What should the process be? So it came up this past year. Communication and coordination, the subcommittee used to have votes for support or opposition for specific food systems bills, and the committee decided to move away from that process this year because they felt it wasn't really adding value to what the intent behind that committee's work was. And really, their goal was to provide more of an educational opportunity about how the state legislative session works and what bills are out there, and give people with information to do their own advocacy as they would like. However, there were issues that came up, such as the bill that helped inform the statute update with the new definitions, where it would make sense for the council to testify on behalf of the council in support of something. But there's no policy written in any of your guiding documents that say when you should or should not testify or submit a letter. What should that policy or process look like? In reiterating Dr. Lansing's point, sometimes it is on very short notice, and so having a formal vote with the full council with sufficient time for everyone to respond could be very challenging. Dr. Lansing.
I'll let Steve. I've been talking a lot, so let Steve go ahead, and then I'll go after. Go ahead, Steve.
Yes, it would be my thought that the council should only be taking positions on pieces of legislation that affect specifically the council. So there should be some allowance for that, and whether that happens at the coordination and communications committee level or at the leadership group. I don't know the answer to that, but obviously, if there's legislation pending that directly affects the council should have the capacity to weigh in if it has, in fact, a position on what the form of that legislation should be.
Yeah. And just to add to that, Steve, I think that's what we did last year, is if the council was named in the legislation or if it directly impacted something we were doing, then I think went back to the subcommittee chairs to make sure to kind of, weigh in, and then went forward to that. But I think we need to keep this very narrow, and there just being a procedure about, when we do vote, and maybe just it would need an approval of, the majority of the leadership group or the subcommittee chairs, since we have two subcommittee chairs, the subcommittee chairs and a co-chair, something where it's just a few people that would need to approve it. Because as you said, it's often very quick. But I think we would need to be very clear about it has to be within this distinct lane of something that's in our council mandate. It's either names the council or it's specifically in the mandate in some way. I don't know.
I agree.
Other thoughts? Thanks, Diane.
This is Heather Breskin. Can you all hear me okay?
Hey, Heather. Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, sorry. I'm joining by phone because I'm between things. So I have been listening intently, but wasn't exactly sure how to unmute. But I just wanted to add from a CNC committee perspective that I agree with Dr. Lansing, and it sounds like Steve concurs, that keeping requirements for the council to weigh in on legislation as narrow as possible, I think will match capacity. And I think, we're still finding our way for what works best with legislative engagement. So I would be hesitant to codify any of that yet. But certainly if the council would be directly impacted by something, I think it does suggest that our perspective would be valuable to legislators. But I think we hadn't really seen our submitting testimony as influencing policymaking one way or another in the past. And so I think the leadership committee, or as Dr. Lansing recommended, the subcommittee of subcommittee chairs, but some type of smaller decision-making body would make us a lot more nimble.
Thank you, Heather. Any final thoughts on these proposed updates? I know this is, an important conversation, and we want you to have time to process it and think of additional strategies moving forward. Any final thoughts? Okay, so the next step for this process will be that MDEM will take our past bylaws document. We will create additional policy documents or code of conduct documents that reflect what was discussed in this conversation. We will make sure that we get advice from our legal experts to ensure that everything is appropriate. And we will share a draft with you all for review. We can have like a comment period if you want, and then do a formal vote for adoption at the December meeting. Does that sound appropriate? Okay, a lot of thumbs ups. Great, thank you. Well, this is a really helpful conversation for me, and I appreciate all of your engagement. It's been very, very helpful. Okay, let's have some updates from the committees. So you all have gotten started with your meetings for the fall in the new fiscal year. I'm going to turn it over to committee co-chairs to just give a quick update. Communication and coordination, you met in September with the local food councils. Do you have anything you want to share about next steps?
Hi, everyone, and I welcome Heather to chime in from her phone. I just really appreciate that the local food council collaborative is able to have a formal dedicated meeting under the Food System Resiliency Council as part of the CNC committee. I think it's very helpful for food councils to collaborate across the state and hear from each other and just understand how these challenges that have come out from the federal level are impacting our food system and what that might mean across different areas of Maryland. So just really appreciate everyone's attendance at that call. I found it incredibly illuminating to hear what everyone's working on and just what was brought up. I think moving forward, in addition to occasionally convening the local food council collaborative, we are still considering how to be most effective during the legislative session in terms of sharing the recommendations that everyone worked so hard to put together. And so I think more to come on that. But if you have specific ideas or recommendations on how we can utilize our time wisely in terms of continuing to educate food system advocates about opportunities to impact our food system, Heather and I are incredibly open to suggestions or ideas about how we can use our time wisely given all that's going on. So I will pause there and let Heather add anything that I may have missed.
Yeah, thanks so much, Michelle. I concur with everything said about how important it is for the local food council to be connecting in a time of significant transition. And there, were a lot of helpful resources shared related to supporting our community partners who are delivering services and, have significant concerns about the safety of their staff and their participants. And I would also just add, connecting back to our earlier conversation about engaging community voice and lived experience in informing the work of the council. I think that local food council collaborative could be a really valuable space for engaging resident perspectives and those with lived experience, because a lot of them do have advisory councils of those with lived experience. So looking forward to exploring that further. And just as Michelle shared, I think we're engaging with the leadership committee of the FSRC to determine how we can best make sure that our legislators are informed in advance of the General Assembly session this coming year on what the recommendations of the FSRC are and what's included in the report, so that we can make sure that the pump is primed for when the session starts, and potentially even explore elected officials who may be interested in taking up those issues and those recommendations and moving them forward. So we're finalizing some details around that, and how we can, maintain compliance, but also facilitate that conversation. And so more to come on that. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Heather and Michelle. Moving on to distribution and access, I think LaMonica had to jump off the call, but we have Lisa Wackenmeyer here, and I'll invite you to give an update in a second, Lisa, but I will start by saying that the committee had a very engaging conversation last week on healthy food retail and healthy food or priority areas in Maryland, with presentations from Dr. Gittleson from Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, who shared some information about a project that he's worked on, bringing healthy food options to corner stores in Baltimore, and technical resources for supporting food security in those spaces. And we also heard from someone from the Kansas State University Rural Grocers Initiative, and it was a very lively conversation, and I believe they will be continuing some form of that at the next meeting. But Lisa, did you want to add anything?
No, you did a great job. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Okay. And environment and production. I believe both Joe and Nancy are on the call still. You all met about setting your agenda for the coming fiscal year. What are the key topics that E&P wants to explore next? Are there things, remaining outstanding questions from the past year's recommendations development process? And so that was what the conversation was mostly about. Joe, Nancy, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered it for the most part. Feel free to jump in, Nancy. But yeah, the first issue that the group highlighted was to delve deeper into labor challenges and trying to interface more with producers and relevant stakeholder agencies to sort of unpack that issue further. But that's where we're starting, and I'm looking forward to continuing to investigate this further.
Joe covered it. Thank you, Joe.
Great, thank you both. Okay, now we're going to open it up for other council members to share updates. Do we have anyone from the local food councils who would like to share an update from your council? Okay, oh, Teresa, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to share that in Allegheny County, the health department received a grant from the Department of Health Chronic Disease Office to work with farmers to accept SNAP at their farms. In addition to, they do accept SNAP at the Farmers Market Association markets. We had 3 farmers that joined with us, and we created boxes of food for specific recipes. And then the culinary school at the college here did a video of making those recipes. And so the recipe and the video on how to make the recipe was included in the box, as well as some kitchen tools. And because of the grant, they were sold to SNAP recipients for $5. We had our first box. It was a overwhelming big success. And then we're working on our second box now. So that was exciting. And we also this summer had a Nourishing Neighbors project that was funded by Care First through County United Way with our Appalachian Farm and Food Alliance, which is the nonprofit that the Food Council falls under. And we did 7 events giving 75 to 100 boxes of local produce away, and tied that with a food demonstration and of what to do with the produce and recipes for what to do with the produce, as well as other community resources had tables there to also promote their programs. So those were 2 exciting projects in Allegheny County this summer.
That's great. Thank you so much, Teresa. We love hearing good news and about inspiring projects from the Western Maryland Food Council.
And good news that we found out that the CSA SNAP produce box program will continue to be funded.
That's great. Thank you. Julie, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, hi. I am part of our steering committee for the Lower Eastern Shore Food Council. We are beginning to step through some asset mapping exercises for our council. And then I can share similar updates with regard to Care First grant here on the Lower Shore, where it's community gardens, it's food boxes in 3 locations to start that are being built by Worcester Tech, the high school here. They're constructing them, and then there'll be like pantry boxes placed in the community. We're doing the cooking classes, the gardens, matching SNAP bucks at one of our local pop-up food markets. And I think that's at high level. So, but I did put something in the chat that like, I feel like some of the things talked about here, like I'm new. So I don't know if I should try to join some of these subcommittees or what that looks like to kind of know about some of these off cycle meetings that might be helpful to know what else is going on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julie. And I'm sorry I missed your comment in the chat earlier. So the Maryland Food System Resiliency Council has a website that we try to keep as up to date as possible, not just with meeting recordings in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, but also upcoming agendas. And all of the meeting links are posted to the council's website. So anyone from the public can access them and see what's going on with the council. So we encourage anyone from our local food councils to join in those conversations as well. And I put the council's email address in the chat earlier. You can always email for additional assistance if that's helpful.
No,
Okay.
Thank you. I'll start paying more attention to that page. So I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. And we had a comment from Beth too that the Midshore Food Alliance is working on our objective for the Alliance. No Kid Hungry is spearheading asset mapping for us as well. Very cool. And the Upper Shore Farm and Food Network is also working on objectives, asset mapping, and seeking funding for projects, progress on some smaller projects in local food procurement. Okay, thank you, everyone. That's very exciting news. Any other member updates, additional things you want to share from your organization? Yeah, Lindsay, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Annika, and it's great to be joining the council. My name's Lindsay Doyle, and I'm glad to be joining the councils to help with our climate change expertise. And one of the things as a new member, I've had the opportunity to connect with some of you and several of the committee co-chairs, and I wanted to just raise a question around the sort of how we're taking stock of previous recommendations of the council, whether that's from the first interim report or from the 2024-2025, the report that is coming out now. I think I would find it, really helpful to get a sense of where we're at in terms of the implementation of those different recommendations. And I know this may have been something that has been brought up previously within the council, and certainly recommendations are, past recommendations are considered within the work planning of the different committees. But I think it'd be really helpful to have a kind of overarching, kind of simple stock take of where we're at now and kind of what more needs to be done, as I'm sure there would be collective interest in seeing a lot of the recommendations that this council's been put forward previously put into action. So just a question around how that's done by the council. Thanks.
Thanks, Lindsay. That's a great question. Anyone want to chime in? Okay, not hearing anybody right now, but please feel free to interrupt me. We can include this question in our follow-up email to see if there are additional thoughts there or interest in figuring out a way to better take stock of your past recommendations and where they've gone. Thanks, Lindsay. Anyone else have an update to share?
Hi, I just wanted to share that I'm kind of new here, but happy to be here. And we just launched our food recovery program. It was in existence before, kind of went dormant for a few years, and now we're relaunching that in Prince George's County. And we're also starting to do our food distributions at our six schools and assigning community health workers at those schools.
Great. Thank you so much, Michelle. We're glad to have you on the council. Any other updates? Okay, hearing nothing, we can end our meeting a few minutes early, which is, I know, always welcome. So thank you. This has been a great call, and I hope you all were able to take something from it too. I will send all of the follow-up materials we talked about, but you can always reach out with questions or additional thoughts by email. I'm happy to chat with anyone about those. So thank you. Thank you all so much. Have a good rest of your Thursday.
Wonderful. Thank you, Annika, as well.
Thanks, Annika.
Thank you, Annika.
Thanks a lot. Bye. Thank you.